I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Friday. It is the last Friday when we're leading into a weekend that doesn't have professional football, our last bye week before the season begins. We have plenty of news to talk about as we get ready for the season, and Dennis and I will have our top 25 receivers for you. But before we do that, Dennis, how was your weekend?
Well, my weekend is going to be awesome. Thanks for asking.
How was your week?
My week was mediocre. Payroll the first half of the week, training on a new software dispatch system the second half of the week. So it was packed full of stuff. Kids sports in the evening, baseball and basketball. The Dynasty Nerd show moved from Thursday to Wednesday. You know, our show's running later because we're dealing with work schedules, and trying to find people, trying to get the people into our listener league. So I think we're up to 10. We need 2 more. Yes. Those are the worst things that happened to me. I guess I got it pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to look. Yes, you are correct. It looks like we have 10 so far in there. So still a couple of shots. Reach out to us if you want to get in. We are going to do our draft on Monday and should be quite a bit of fun. Somebody who's not having fun is Jonathan Taylor, who I wasn't surprised to me. Maybe to some people's surprise, the Colts did not accept any of the trade offers they got by the imposed deadline of Tuesday. And even more surprising, they left Jonathan Taylor on PUP, which means he can't play for them or anyone else for at least 4 weeks. What are you feeling about Jonathan Taylor now, Dennis?
I got to tell you, if I'm Shane Steichen, I'm like, God dang it, what the hell was I thinking coming here? Now, Taylor, I think what gets me, now I'm a tad bit concerned that maybe, just maybe, that ankle ain't where it's supposed to be. And as far as recovery, and there's, I'm going to stay away. I'm working with my own people on it. That's my holdout. I'll rehab it with my own people when I'm in camp. Now I'm not going to do anything because I want a new contract. It's, for them to put him on PUP, now I'm a little bit concerned. I mean, I'm not as concerned as my Scott Fishbowl team, but overall, I'm a little concerned. I think Taylor, because ultimately they can still trade him up until the in-season trade deadline. They can hold on to him for 4 weeks and decide, hey, you know what? When you come off PUP in 4 weeks, we're still going to move you. We're going to let you show people you're healthy now.
That window's really short, though, coming off PUP to the trade deadline, which is October 6th, which is the 6th week of the regular season. So, I mean, they better be generating some interest now, but I don't know how many of those teams really want to come way up on their offers at this point in time.
I'm sure not many at all.
Especially interested, one of the heaviest pursuits was Green Bay, apparently. And you have to think they were offering to trade back one of their 2 running backs. Otherwise, they may actually be bringing the wishbone back.
Yeah, I could see them being ready to get rid of Aaron Jones just because he's pushing 30. Uh, it makes they're not gonna probably not gonna re-sign AJ Dillon unless he takes a team-friendly deal. He's getting close to the end of his contract. So adding a stud running back to all of that youth they have at the rest of the skill positions actually makes sense because they've got so many first and second year players that that could put them in serious title contention. But also, I get that they don't want to overpay for a guy.
I think it's going to take more than Jonathan Taylor for them to get in time. Maybe you didn't mean 2023, but
No, I meant 23.
another piece of running back news, Jeff Wilson, who we thought would probably be the best option in the Miami backfield, also went on short-term IR, so he's out for at least 4 weeks. Achane is banged up. They released Myles Gaskin. Is it Mostert for you? Is it Salvon Ahmed?
It's Raheem Mustard, and it's backing him up with Salvon Ahmed. Ahmed looks explosive. He's always been explosive. He's just a small dude. And, if Achane's already dinged up, so none of them guys are very big. Mostert's almost 30. He's never been able to carry the load for a full season and stay healthy. I did like Wilson. Wilson was the guy that I preferred just because I expected him to get a lot more work than Achane or Ahmed or Gaskin, and he was cheaper than Mostert. And last year, Wilson looked good in the offense. But coming out of left field, I got a strained muscle in my tummy and my finger hurts. Hey, go to I. It seems like the IR is like a fantasy IR. Oh, you're questionable? Go on IR. That's what it seems like now with that short-term IR.
I mean, you can only bring back 8 players, though, so you do have to be somewhat careful with it. But I guess this is the time of year where they are treating it a little bit more like the DL list in baseball, or I guess it's IL list now. TJ Hockenson got a big new deal at tight end. I had said earlier I thought he was going to be the number 2 option in Minnesota and fit really well there. Does this deal kind of confirm that, Dennis?
Yeah, they clearly liked him a lot. They traded for him. They used him down the stretch in a big way. Even with Thielen there, it seems that O'Connell coming from the McVay tree, kind of, they have a stud wide receiver that they funnel a ton of targets to. Then they sprinkle in the tight end and a couple other receivers. I think they're going to generously sprinkle in Hockenson. He's been going, I think, as the tight end 3 in drafts most of this second half of the off season. I think he's going to get plenty of work. It wouldn't surprise me. He was my tight end 3, if I remember correctly. And I think he's going to get the volume. I like Addison a lot. I think he's going to be a really good number 2, probably end up in the wide receiver 3 range, maybe low end wide receiver 2. But man, if you got Hockenson, fire him up.
So Dennis, we had cut down day. There were a lot of players cut. I know the biggest surprise for me with the Broncos was that they only kept 4 wide receivers, one of whom, Jerry Jeudy, they don't think will play for a couple of weeks. So, that's a choice. But were there any surprising cuts for you?
I don't know that there were. That's not really. I mean, it was they're cutting and signing. It was all, a 2-day period. You're cutting from 90 to 53 or 85 to 53. And then the next day you can make waiver claims and you're getting people. It was, were there, some of our, I guess, dynasty darlings like Dwayne McBride. he was probably the most surprising, unless you watched the preseason and you saw him go out there in the first game and crap the bed in his first couple plays. And I don't think he played again till like kneel down time in that game. He clearly was a guy they were ready to, move on. And if they could bring him back, I think they would. But it seems that Ty Chandler really locked in that number 2 position. It was interesting because, they did cut McBride in Minnesota, and then they put Kene Nwangwu on IR. And so it seemed like the expected thing would have been to bring back McBride, and then they signed Myles Gaskin. So, I forget where McBride has landed. He did sign with somebody on their practice squad, but overall, I think it was a fairly nondescript group of people that got cut.
Yeah, there were a couple of mildly probably relevant fantasy ones. I wasn't shocked to see Zonovan Knight get cut, but he went from a guy who some people thought was going to start week 1 because Brees is still coming back to not even making the team, which is kind of a rough blow for a guy that ended pretty well last year. And I saw Isaiah McKenzie got cut by the Colts, which probably a good sign for Josh Downs, but a little mildly surprising because they picked him up in free agency. It was also mildly surprising. I mentioned the Broncos only kept 4 receivers. They didn't keep any of Sean Payton's old Saints receivers. I thought Marquez Callaway was a lead pipe cinch lock for the team. He is now on the Raiders practice squad.
Yeah, I don't know what Denver's doing with their wide receivers. Both of them.
Yeah, they have 3 healthy ones on the roster. I'm certain that they, the thing that makes it a little bit harder this year, since they tweaked the rules, is they can pull up players off the practice squad for a few, and they loaded up. It seems like Philip Dorsett probably will get pulled up, and little Jordan Humphrey, one or two of those guys for the first couple of weeks will be out on there. They have like 4 receivers on the practice squad.
David Sills is another one.
Yep. Speaking of wide receivers, we are going to be continuing our look at wide receivers today, looking at 25 to 1. And we'll start with the first block that will be 25 to 16. Matt cannot be with us tonight because he is a little under the weather, but I will start by reading off his 25 to 16 because he did put them in for us. He has Mike Evans at 25 and Chris Godwin at 24, teammates back to back. He has Terry McLaurin at 23 and then Tyler Lockett at 22. He has Deebo Samuel at 21 and then Drake London at 20. Deontay Johnson coming in at 19 for him. DJ Moore down at 18. T. Higgins at 17 and then DK Metcalf at number 16. So Dennis, why don't you give us your 25 to 16?
So I've got Terry McLaurin at 25. I just think he's the number 1 there. I like Sam Howell. I think they're going to have a fairly balanced attack between the run and pass game. The defense has a way to go. And if the defense is still struggling, the passing game looks to be able to produce some fantasy points. At 24, I've got DeAndre Hopkins. I just got a feeling that he's going to produce this year. He's still got some in the tank. Derrick Henry he's the perfect counterweight to what DeAndre Hopkins does. I know Ryan Tannehill isn't a fantasy darling and is in the sunset phase of his career, but I think Hopkins is going to get his, 85 to 90 receptions, 6 or 8 touchdowns. I think he'll be in the low end wide receiver 2 range. 23, I have Drake London. It's a narrow funnel in Atlanta. It's London, it's Pitts, maybe Bijan, then Mac Hollins. But Ritter hasn't looked awesome this training camp. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. I picked up some shares in the offseason, drafted him as my 3rd quarterback on several best ball teams. but he hasn't looked awesome. Maybe having those 8-foot tall receivers is part of the plan. But I like Drake London's talent, and I have London at 23. At 22, I have Deebo Samuel. I want to put Ayuk above Samuel, and I just never can quite get myself there. I've said it before. I'm on record. I think for fantasy, this San Francisco offense is Christian McCaffrey and one other member of the special of the skill group. It'll be Ayuk, it'll be Deebo, it'll be Kittle, and then a half a member. So it's like Brock Purdy, I don't think can support 4 top-level fantasy assets. Maybe I'm wrong. If I am, then those people drafting Brock Purdy late are going to win. But right now, I went ahead and I've got Deebo Samuel up there at wide receiver 22. I have Chris Godwin at 21. I think he's just going to get, he's going to be working more out of the slot. I'm not a Baker believer. I'm definitely not a Kyle Trask believer. I think that there'll be volume because the team is not very good, and so they're going to have to be playing the passing game because they'll be behind. So there'll be garbage time points, and Chris Godwin will get his fair share. At 20, I have DJ Moore. Makes me a little nervous having him this high. I know historically he's put up typically enough points to be in this range. Now he's on a very run-heavy offense. I love Justin Fields, but he's got to take a huge step. He's already talking about passing for 4,000 yards. Honestly, I think the over-under on his yardage is like 2,800 or something. So I'm not sure. There's a big disconnect between what the prognosticators think Fields is going to do and what Justin Fields thinks he's going to do. I like DJ Moore. He is the unquestioned wide receiver 1 in Chicago, and I do think he's going to get he'll get the lion's share of the passing work amongst all skill positions. At 19, I have Deontay Johnson. Johnson is going in wide receiver 32 on the current Fantasy Pros ADP. I think that's just ludicrous. I think the whole Pittsburgh offense takes a step. Is Kenny Pickett going to throw for 5,000 yards? No, he's not. Is he going to throw for 45 touchdowns? No, he's not. But Deontay Johnson was, I think, wide receiver 32 last year. He had a good season. He just didn't get in the end zone. It was a fluky season. He averages 6.5 touchdowns a season for his career leading up to last year. He's the number 1 wide receiver in Pittsburgh. Yes, I know George Pickens makes great, fancy splash plays. And Pickens at some point may take over, but it's not going to be this year. Pickens needs to get more consistent. I love Deontay Johnson. I think he'll work some from the slot. He'll work outside. He's going to be the volume hog in Pittsburgh. At number 18, I have Calvin Ridley. I don't know if you were listening to the Dynasty Nerds show on Friday on the Better Sports Network. Garrett and I were talking about, we ended the show with hot takes. And I got to tell you, so I struggled with hot takes because I'm like looking at my rankings and I'm going, man, my rankings are pretty, 3 or 4 spots here or there, players off from what the ADP is. I don't think that's, hot takey enough. And I asked Garrett, I'm like, I feel like if I want to give a hot take, I have to disregard my rankings. And he said, well, by all means, that's what hot takes are. And so I'm like, okay, well, then I don't know. Is it really a take? So anyways, I predicted my hottest take, I think, was Calvin Ridley, top 5 wide receiver. I think he's a really good receiver. He's an exceptional route runner. He's very, 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 to use the old cliche, he's got that dog in him. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder that he wants to lay down on the table and make a little extra cash with. So you get it, the gambling reference there. And so I think he's going to play his ass off this year. He's right in the midst of his prime. And I know he's coming off being off for a year and a half, but he's got a really, really good quarterback. Lawrence is a top 7 fantasy quarterback He's going to put up points. He's going to pass the ball. They're going to pass the ball a lot. He's going to take over the wide receiver one role there. So I've got Ridley at wide receiver 18, but I think he could finish top 5. At 17, I've got Amari Cooper. As much as I want to put him higher, and he was a wide receiver 1 last year, all signs point to it being a Nick Chubb season. Yes, they want to show that we believe in Deshaun Watson. That's why we paid him $252 million. But when it gets to nut cutting time and that seat gets hot, Stefanski, he's a run-first coach, and Nick Chubb is going to be the beneficiary. So while Cooper is going to get plenty of work, he's still at my wide receiver 17. I got DK Metcalf at 16. I love DK Metcalf, but he's just not consistent enough yet. And as he goes, and I think my numbers might be. Are my numbers off, or am I right on? 16 is DK. As the season goes on, we're going to find out the truth about Geno Smith, and I'm afraid the truth is that last year was a mirage. So I like DK. He's a big play threat, can take it the distance on any play. Doesn't run a full route tree exceptionally well, but the things he does well, he does really, really well.
Yeah, you ended in the right spot. So 25 for me, I have Brandon Cooks. Maybe that's a hot take for me, but I think that he is going to fare well in Dallas. I think the Dallas passing game is going to be pretty strong. Number 24, I have Tyler Lockett. I think he's going to be right up there in wide receiver 2 range again. I think it's going to take some time for JSN, especially coming off of that wrist injury in the preseason. I still think this is going to be a pretty decent year for Lockett and Metcalf, although I am with you. I don't know that Geno has quite the same year. 23, I have Drake London, same as you, kind of for a lot of the same reasons. Matt had Evans and Godwin back-to-back. So do I. Have them slightly higher. I have Mike Evans at 22 and Chris Godwin at 21. But I'll tell you, those are the 2 guys up in this range that probably make me the most nervous, because I wasn't really high on that offense to begin with, and they lost Ryan Jensen. They haven't figured out the offensive line. I mean, it's possible Tampa Bay is cruising toward like a 3 or 4 win season. Evans seems unhappy, like he might leave. So I respect those guys' talent, but that does make me nervous. I have Deontay Johnson at 20. I'm with you. I think people have been underrating him a lot this offseason. I have DK Metcalf at 19. He and Lockett both in that wide receiver 2 range, but I don't think that it's quite as big of a season for the Seahawks passing game in general. I have DJ Moore at 18. I've loved his connection with Justin Fields, but is there going to be enough passing volume? Is it going to be a good enough offense? Those are a couple of the questions I still have. I wanted to put him higher, but I knocked him back a little bit because it makes me nervous. I have Deebo Samuel at 17. He seemed to have a really good connection with Brock Purdy in the couple of preseason games. Hard to take a lot from that. I think he and Ayuk are both really talented, and they're both going to have games where they're incredible and games where it's frustrating that you started them. 16 for me, I have T. Higgins, the other half of that duo in Cincinnati. I think he is in for another great season. We'll take our next chunk from 15 to 6. I will give you Matt's rankings before Dennis gives you his. He has Devonta Smith down at 15. He had Chris Olave at 14. And then Keenan Allen at 13. Entering wide receiver 1 range, he has Jalen Waddle at wide receiver 12. Cooper Kupp at wide receiver 11. Amari Cooper at wide receiver 10. Stephon Diggs at wide receiver 9. Devontae Adams at wide receiver 8. CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver 7. And Tyreek Hill at wide receiver 6. So, Dennis, for you, who do you have 15 to 6?
So I have Cooper Kupp at 15. As we were getting ready to go on air, I was debating because he was my number 4, but I just think that I'm willing to be wrong, but it feels like 30 years old on a team that ain't great, hamstring injury, coming off an injury, soft tissue setback. It feels like it's going to linger, and it wouldn't surprise me if by week 8, Matthew Stafford's back is acting up and Stetson Bennett's playing quarterback, and it just becomes a race to the bottom between the Rams and the Cardinals and the Buccaneers. I want to have him. When he's playing and he's right, he's the Christian McCaffrey of the wide receivers. I know we all want to put we all have the tendency to put Justin Jefferson up top, but through 8 games, I mean, Cooper Kupp was scoring fantasy points at such a rate last year that he missed half of the season and was still, I think, wide receiver 14. So he's good, but I'm at 30 years old. I'm afraid of that soft tissue injury. I've got Keenan Allen at 14. I kept looking for reasons to squeeze Keenan Allen into the wide receiver ones. I think he's going to get plenty of volume. Again, his 2022 is kind of what it feels like Cooper Kupp's 2023 is going to look like. He missed 10 games, I think, after he started out the first game and then missed like 10 games. It feels like Kupp is going to miss at least half of the season. But man, Keenan, with Kellen Moore coming over, he's going to throw the ball. He's going to move it downfield. They have such an array of weapons in such an established set of roles. Keenan is the volume guy. Mike Williams is downfield. Josh Palmer, Josh Palmer is the Dennis Rodman of the Los Angeles Chargers. He just cleans it up and stuff. We'll see where Johnston comes in. Austin Eckler's still there. Joshua Kelly's coming on. Lots of pieces, but Keenan Allen is the top dog out there in LA. At 13, I've got Chris Olave. Olave with Andy Dalton was 31.9% of the time was the first read. So I think we know what that offense is going to do. Devontae Adams with Derek Carr last year was number 1 in first read targets at 38.5%. So when you take Derek Carr, who force-fed Devontae Adams like nobody's business, and put him in an offense that Andy Dalton force-fed Chris Olave in, it wouldn't surprise me to see Chris Olave sitting atop the first read target percentage for 2023. At 12, I've got T. Higgins. There's just 2 or 3 pairings of receivers that I just think that they're on good enough offenses with good enough quarterbacks that you can almost fit them all into the top 12 wide receivers. I got T. Higgins at 12. He's the number 2 behind Jamar Chase. They play a little bit of a different game, and Higgins, I think, he's looking to establish that, yeah, I get it. I got Jamar Chase here, but I'm no joke. And he's looking to continue that. Devontae Smith at 11, another one of those dynamic duos in the top 12. Dude was crazy last year. He had 1,200 yards and 100 catches, playing with A.J. Brown, who also was a wide receiver 1. Just a phenomenal. He contorts himself. He weighs 17 pounds. They call him Skinny Batman, but they should call him Gumby, is what they should call him, the way he bends, gets hit. You think, oh, they're going to break him. He bounces back up. Devontae Smith is phenomenal. At 10, I've got Devontae Adams. I think, in a subpar year with Derek Carr, he had a really good year, kind of showing he's quarterback proof. I think he's going to really test that theory this year with Garoppolo and Hoyer and Aiden O'Connell, because I do expect all 3 of those guys to play this year. We'll see what happens. I know Adams is kind of subtly trying to push his way out of Las Vegas for his sake and ours as fantasy managers. It'd be awesome if that actually occurred. Number 9, another one of those duos, Jalen Waddle. Miami, narrow funnel. It's Waddle, it's Hill, and that's that offense. We talked about the Wilson, Mostert, A-chain backfield. I know they tried to get Jonathan Taylor, but they weren't willing to overpay for him. But both of those wide receivers, they put up a ton of points. They just, they catch and run. They get downfield. Tua is surprisingly good on the deep ball. Everybody wants to talk about, he just makes short throws and those fast guys run. Yeah, they do that, but they also go downfield and make plays and keep running. At 8, I've got A.J. Brown. Of the 3 duos I have in the top 12, the reason A.J. Brown is the lowest of the quote-unquote ones is because Philadelphia is the lowest passing volume. Brown was super efficient. We know about his knee. They manage it. He's been managing it for years. Is he going to have a long career? Probably not. But he is a stud. He's big. He's strong. He gets downfield. He maintains everything about his body that he needs to, and he takes care of that knee. I think he's going to be fantastic this year. At number 7, I got Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're talking about an extension for Jared Goff. The whole home road split thing makes me a little nervous, but I don't know. I mean, who the hell else you going to get? Goff he's a good quarterback, maybe not great, but he's good. And they don't have a lot of other weapons right now. I know they brought in Jahmyr Gibbs, but he's a rookie and hasn't proven anything. Sam Laporta, a lot of people are high on Sam Laporta, but he's a rookie tight end. David Montgomery is the quintessential veteran. He does everything good, but nothing great. Doesn't fumble the ball, picks up the blitz. We'll see now. They've got a cast of characters at wide receiver 2, 3, 4. Between Jameson Williams and his, off the field stuff, and Marvin Jones and his, used to plow the fields. He's so dang old, and Josh Reynolds being, just Goff's guy. It's just a group of guys that seem to always step up opposite of St. Brown. And so to me, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is a really, really good receiver. He's pushing to get more outside time. I don't know that that's his forte, but I think he understands that's what's going to improve his ADOT. That's what's going to improve his salary, is to get outside, and they're going to accommodate him. And then at number 6, CeeDee Lamb, number 6 on my rankings, number 2 in my heart, because I love Garrett Wilson more. But Lamb I think having Brandon Cooks is going to help CeeDee Lamb. Jake Ferguson is a decent tight end. Tony Pollard concerns me with, can he handle the volume? And they haven't done anything to make you believe that Pollard's not going to get the volume. But CeeDee Lamb, when you talk about having that dog in you, CeeDee Lamb has it. He's a great route runner, works out of the slot, out of the outside, has a nose for the end zone. He fights for the ball. He's got great ball skills. I had CeeDee Lamb at number 6.
Your comments about Laporta and stuff reminded me that I probably had the ultimate preseason upside rookie draft that I did this week because this league was really late. I had 111. I took Marvin Mims because I was like, Denver doesn't have any wide receivers. And then in the second round, I realized my only tight end that I could play was K. Dotton. So I took Sam Laporta. And then in the third round, I'm on the team that has Jonathan Taylor. I went and grabbed Evan Hull. So sometimes drafting late, you end up with those guys that you're just praying you can get. I am like you with Cooper Kupp. I had him up in the wide receiver 1 range, but this entire offseason, preseason didn't make me feel great about that. And then the news that came out this week that he's already suffered a setback, I put him down to 15. That might be a little ambitious. But you and I kind of the same. I think you and I have the same 15, 14, 13, because I have Keenan Allen also at 14. I thought about putting him higher, but I think they're going to use their other wide receivers there too. Sort of an embarrassment of riches there for Justin Herbert now. And then I have Chris Olave at 13. I don't think there's an embarrassment of riches in New Orleans. All of my dynasty shares would love for Michael Thomas to come back to being fantasy relevant. My heart would like that. My head tells me to not plan for that. So, number 12, I have Devonta Smith. I think he'll have a good season. He is in there. I only have, I think, 2 sets of teammates that are up in the top 12 because I have Higgins slightly out. But the next set of teammates comes up for me right at 11. Jalen Waddle, as you mentioned, kind of a narrow funnel. I expect he's going to have another good season. I have Amari Cooper at 10. He was wide receiver 10 last year with Jacoby Brissett throwing him the ball and them still feeding the ball to Nick Chubb heavily. I don't really think that changes a lot. I have Stephon Diggs at number 9. I'm going to tell you, he's the one for me in the top 12 that makes me the most nervous because he has not been vibing with his team this offseason, and that has seemingly continued as we're getting closer to the season. Buffalo feels like one of those teams that could be 12-5 and the number 2 seed in the AFC, or 7-10 and the wheels completely flew off the bus. They didn't just come off, they got like thrown off the bus. So that's kind of what makes me a little nervous. I have CeeDee Lamb at 8. I think he's still going to have a great season. I'm a little more bullish on both Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks than you guys. So I think there's going to be just more balls flying around there. Devontae Adams at 7. He's another one that the wheels could really come off the bus, but what he did last year was just insane. And then number 6. Well, I mean, he could get it again because there's him and Jacoby Myers, and I guess it just depends on how much they decide to throw. And then at 6 for me, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's going to have a great year. I'm very bullish on Detroit, something you will get to hear more of on Monday when we do our postseason predictions and some of our award predictions. But now we have made it to the top 5. And you know what, Dennis? I'm going to let you take it away and give your top 5 first.
So I have at number 5, my one and only Garrett Wilson. I want to put him at 1. I will not be surprised if Garrett Wilson is the wide receiver 1. Last year in this offense, he was 10th in the league in first read targets with 33.1% of his targets. We know Aaron Rodgers loves to target his top receiver. I know, give me the Lazard and the Cobb. They came over with him, yada, yada, yada. Look, they're not Garrett freaking Wilson. Wilson had a really good rookie year with 3 pretty terrible quarterbacks. And while Aaron Rodgers ain't what he used to be, he's substantially better than that hot mess they had last year. Oh, dang it. Don't you hate it when you misread your stuff? So I've got Wilson at 4. I've got Stephon Diggs at 5. I just jumped ahead. I got Stephon Diggs at 5. I think he's still the one. I think Gabe is the 2. I think that Dalton Kincaid, everybody's All-American, is going to play a role, but I don't think he's going to supplant Gabe Davis as the number 2. And Gabe Davis certainly isn't going to supplant Stephon Diggs as the number 1. And their running game is what it is. It's James Cook, who's too little to run between the tackles. And as much as I want Damian Harris to be a thing, I don't think he's going to be consistently fantasy viable. And regardless of how effective Damian Harris is, I do think Josh Allen runs a little bit less this year. So I think Diggs is going to have another stellar season. And the vibe is off a little bit. When they flirted with DeAndre Hopkins, Stephon Diggs got jealous. And he's still pissing and moaning about it. Josh Allen was out yesterday or today saying, hey, we're cool. Everything is good. We're as tight as we've ever been. We still hang out with, it's all good. But, is it? So then Garrett Wilson at 4. I've already waxed poetic about how much I love Garrett Wilson. if he was, I think if he was just a little bit faster, I would probably have him up higher than my wide receiver 3 in Dynasty, but I still have him at 3 in Dynasty. 4 this year. If he finishes the wide receiver 1, I got to be honest, I won't be surprised. At number 3, another one of my duos, I got Tyreek Hill. We like to talk about players as unicorns like Travis Kelce. Tyreek Hill is a unicorn. He's 5'10" and he's 180 pounds, and he's one of the most explosive players I've ever seen. He's fast. He's got exceptional ball skills. He's a phenomenal route runner. He can run the ball out of the backfield. He really messes up the analytics models because, like, his first couple of years of college, he played running back, like at a D3 school or some little small school. He didn't have a lot of wide receiver experience coming into the league, but he's developed, and he's in that offense that is going to funnel the targets to the top 2 guys. And of the top 2, he is the top 1. At number 2, I've got Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to take just a little bit of a step back from last year and still be phenomenal. I think they're still going to throw the ball plenty. They're going to still spread it around probably at the same rate. He's still going to dominate targets. But I just think my number 1, Ja'Marr Chase, is going to put it all together this year. When you look back over the history of Justin Jefferson, and Ja'Marr Chase, when they played coming out of high school, Chase was the better recruit. When they were at LSU, Chase was the number 1. Jefferson came into the league, put up that great rookie season. Chase came in and beat it. Ja'Marr Chase is just, he has the better quarterback, and they're both, you can't go wrong. I've got a team that has both of them, and I'm so looking forward to the season.
Do you think this is the part of rankings, countdowns, and shows that all the people that took Jerry Jeudy and Jalen Reagor first in rookie drafts just go drink somewhere, especially Jalen Reagor?
Take it from somebody who used to drink a lot. When you're in that situation, anything is a reason to drink, especially there.
And, I'll include myself. There was definitely leagues where I took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. He was supposed to be the just so great, and now unemployed.
So that team where I have Jefferson and Chase, I just traded for Tyreek Hill. So it's a no flex league. So we start 3 running backs, 4 wide receivers. My wide receivers are Justin Jefferson, Ja'Marr Chase, Tyreek Hill, and Deontay Johnson.
You'll probably be okay. You just got to hope that they don't all have a bye week at the same time, because that's the part that always bites me.
If they all have a week at the same time, that's
great. Here are Matt's top 5. He has Amon-Ra St. Brown at 5. A.J. Brown at 4. He just, wanted to go Brown back-to-back, apparently. He has Garrett Wilson up at 3, the highest of the 3 of us. He has Ja'Marr Chase at 2 and Justin Jefferson at 1. For me, I have Garrett Wilson at 5. I thought he was great last year. I think he's going to be great this year. The only part of Hard Knocks that has spoken to me and my shares of Garrett Wilson is the fact that he's developed great chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, who seems to be targeting him a lot. That has been a bromance that has dominated the show. Usually you've seen Hard Knocks be kind of about the lower tier players who are fighting to make the team, but this one is just, where does Aaron Rodgers go and who does Aaron Rodgers like? And it has been a disappointment. Number 4 for me is Tyreek Hill. He's going to put up some big numbers. 3 for me is A.J. Brown. I think he's going to be great in the Eagles offense again. And then I have Ja'Marr Chase at 2 and Justin Jefferson at 1. But honestly, With those last two, I mean, you could put them in any order and you can't go wrong with either of them. Or if you're lucky enough to be like Dennis and be blessed to have both of them on the same team, who is your quarterback on that team?
We don't want to talk about that. It is Garoppolo and Cousins, so it's not that bad. And we
Well,
start
Cousins, you have the. That's what I was looking to see if you had a stack, because that actually is kind of nice for fantasy.
So my running backs are Jacobs, Dobbins, and Pierce. I also have Dalvin Cook on my bench. My tight ends, I'm slumming at a tight end with George Kittle and David Njoku.
Yeah, you're really slimming it, like my team, where I can choose between Cade Otton and hoping Sam Laporta is the greatest rookie tight end in the history of the Detroit Lions franchise. Well, that brings us to a couple of questions to close out. I've kind of given you guys that are making me nervous, but Dennis, who is somebody in your top 12 you are most nervous about?
In the top 12, the guy that I probably it's Devontae Adams, and that's why I have him all the way down at 10. I want to believe, but he's getting up there in years too. They traded away his bestie, or let his bestie walk as a free agent. They cut him, whatever they did. I don't even remember now. And they downgraded at quarterback. He's expressed that he isn't terribly happy about the situation. And so there's a part of me that thinks that, the team struggles, the sore hamstring is just a little bit more sore, takes just a little longer. That, Garoppolo struggles and, can't get the ball to him consistently. Garoppolo gets injured, and, Brian Hoyer, that ain't it. Aiden O'Connell got a lot to prove if he can even be, Aiden O'Connell is looking for Colt McCoy's career at this point. So Devontae at 10 probably makes me the most nervous, even that low. Now, I wouldn't be surprised one bit if Devontae finished as wide receiver 1, but I just feel like all of these other factors are catching up with him this year.
Who is one guy not in your top 25 that you feel like could make that leap?
For me, I feel like I'm cheating when I say Christian Watson because he's at 26. But I get a really good feeling about the Packers and just this team gelling. Right now, they're kind of a us against the world, and it's young guys, and they're all kind of rallying. And it could be a situation where things just click. We saw it last year with the Giants. I thought they were a year early last year. I'm not expecting the Packers, to make a deep playoff run, but they could surprise and put up some points. And Watson, he can run the ball on the jet sweep. He's big. He's got exceptional speed. He's kind of a DK Metcalf light kind of guy, except he's got a little more wiggle to him. So at 26, like I said, it seems like a little bit of cheating. The other guy I would go with is Jahan Dotson. McLaurin is dinged up a little bit with turf toe, and there's some talk about he may even miss week 1. Dotson just keeps performing when he's in there. I know he had a stretch. He missed some games last year with injuries, but both before and after that, the dude's got a nose for the end zone. And if Sam Howell can play, even, QB 18 level, I think that Jahan Dotson has the potential to move himself up into the top 25.
Yeah, for me, it's Calvin Ridley for a lot of the reasons that you talked about, him kind of being a guy you thought could make a leap outside of where you have him ranked there at 18. I had him up in my top 25 at one point in time. I got a little nervous and put him back down, but Another one. I've been holding on to some dynasty shares for the last 3 years, waiting for this to happen. And I would like for a happier thing to happen than what happened the last time I held on to somebody for that long, which was Le'Veon Bell. I had him like proudly on 22 out of my 25 dynasty teams. And you know what? That didn't work out for me. That did not work out for me in the least. Well, we are coming into the weekend. As I mentioned, Monday we will be kicking off our Redraft League draft. If you want a chance to get in, reach out to Dennis, reach out to me, reach out to the show's handle, and make it happen quickly so you can get in there before Monday.
So I just finished a rookie draft, and it was a 7-rounder. We have 6 IDPs, so IDPs get drafted. When you're talking about drafting Laporta, I have been decidedly anti-tight end, rookie tight end in drafts. I'm going to wait for him. I did the same thing though with you. I looked around at the tight ends and I thought, I'm going to go ahead and grab Laporta. So, and I had several picks. So I went Jahmyr Gibbs at 104, and I really debated. I needed a quarterback. Justin Fields was really my only startable quarterback. And I'm like, I'm really kind of rebuilding. But man, I just couldn't pass up Jahmyr Gibbs. I was like, I'm going to take him. And then CJ Stroud fell to me at 107. So I was delighted. I got CJ Stroud. At 108, I think, my only share of Quentin Johnston. I passed on Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers. I just felt like, I don't think I have any Zay Flowers. I do have some Addison. Going into the second round at the 203, I went with Sam Laporta. I'm like, why not? Let's give it a shot. I don't roster a bunch of him. 206, I went Tank Bigsby, which starts me to think, well, I drafted Stroud, who's going to move into my starting lineup, and Gibbs, who's going to move into my starting lineup. So I guess I should probably, maybe I think I'm competing, so I'll go for a running back over a wide receiver. Mingo was really the only wide receiver I considered there. And lo and behold, Mingo fell to me at 209. So it was like I won the lottery. In the third round, my next pick, do you know who is really flown under the radar and could be the guy somewhere? And that's Sean Tucker. Down in, he had the heart issue, fell out of the draft, signed as a free agent. He's on a terrible team. He's going to be better than Keyshawn Vaughn. Last year, Rachaad White, he was productive, but he wasn't efficient playing behind Leonard Fournette. White's going to get the opportunity, but this offense is going to be bad in Tampa Bay. And I think by season's end, I wouldn't be surprised if Tucker was the starter. Got Tucker at the 307. You know what wide receiver that I love that's in a terrible situation? Michael Wilson in Arizona. It's like he's been injured most of his college career. Just feels like he's got an opportunity. 407, I went Michael Wilson. Kayshon Boutte in the 5th, 507. Like, got to draft somebody. Then I dipped into the IDP in the 6th round. I went with linebacker Owen Popo for the Arizona Cardinals. He was rated pretty high. Drew Sanders was rated. I leaned really hard towards Sanders, but in the end, I thought, who's going to be awful and their defense is going to be on the field a lot? Arizona. And a rookie linebacker that could get lots of playing time on a terrible team could rack up some tackles. So I went Popo. And then in the 7th round, I went with Ivan Pace, who was an undrafted free agent, landed in Minnesota, who's rebuilding their defense with Brian Flores. Pace was a monster at the University of Cincinnati, and I think the Vikings have put him to use. So I like it. It was my last rookie draft, but it turned out to be one of my favorites.
Yeah, sometimes later ones work out for you. It'll be interesting to see. I'm almost thinking I might lower Marquise Brown because the idea that it's either going to be Josh Dobbs or Clayton Tune hurling the ball in their general direction doesn't make me feel good about any Arizona wide receiver.
Well, doesn't have to return.
What a Sophie's choice. That'll do it for us today. If you are missing football this weekend and you have college on in the background, but you're waiting for the boys for Sundays, Dennis, what can the people do?
They should go ahead and dive into their favorite podcast platform. Give us a download and a subscribe. Listen, don't listen, just subscribe. Make sure it downloads. Go give us a rating and a review. That helps move us up the ranks. So, maybe if you don't like us and you think we don't know what you're talking about, help move us up there so your friends listen to us, and that'll help you even more.
Is that like the negging approach to
reverse psychology?
Well, you know what? If you only download and keep one episode of our show for the year in archive, you'll want them to be on Monday because we are going to do our predictions for playoffs and year-end awards. Always turns out pretty good. I'm pretty sure that both Dennis and I picked the Rams last year, and that did not look good. A lot of us were on somebody else too. I was on somebody in the AFC that just totally flat. Oh, I'm pretty sure I picked Denver to be in the playoffs, which they took years off my life. So you will have that fun to look forward to on Monday. It is a holiday, so we'll be coming to you a little bit earlier. So that'll also be something fun to look forward to. You can listen to it and kick back and enjoy the rest of your Labor Day Monday. But until then, guys, enjoy your weekend.